You've made it to Chirohustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession on the world's #1 chiropractic podcast. Before we dive into this powerful episode, please remember to subscribe to our channels and to give us a 5-star rating on iTunes and to continue hustling. This episode is sponsored by Imaging Services, Chiro Health USA, Chiro Moguls, Pure Chiro Notes, Titronics, Sherman College of Chiropractic, New Patients in a Box, the Influencer Authority Podcast Training, Mango Voice, Community Healthcare Resources, Life Chiropractic College West. Let's hustle.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 424 of the Chirohustle podcast. I am your producer, Luke Millette, and here's your host, James Juster.
So today we had the opportunity of interviewing Marcus Ellis, and he talks about cancer. And you don't give chemotherapy to people you love. Listen to this episode and learn more. Welcome back. This is another episode of the Chirohustle podcast. I was just telling Marcus Ellis here, my guest today. We're at episode 424. We just had our 5-year birthday. So Chirohustle just turned 5. And I think that's really cool to share with you. But before we get into this episode, I want to let you guys know why we do what we do. We protect freedom of speech. And on today's episode, we're going to talk more importantly about health freedom and solutions for that. And we also protect the sacred trust. If you guys don't know what that is and you're watching this, just go do a search for BJ Palmer Sacred Trust, and you'll know a whole lot more about chiropractic and why we do what we do on this show. And then we support subluxation-based chiropractic. Once again, it's a big word. Go to your favorite search engine, put in the word subluxation, and you'll know a whole lot more about chiropractic. And lastly, we believe in innate intelligence and universal intelligence, that when man or woman gets adjusted by a chiropractor, it connects them to man or woman, the physical, to man or woman, the spiritual. So really cool stuff. And chiropractic is a big topic, and I'm thankful for everybody that's going to listen to this episode today. Marcus, welcome to Chirohustle.
Well, thank you, Jim. I appreciate the invitation, and I appreciate you taking the time to hear my story and be a part of this.
Yeah, you know, I had a chance to meet Marcus out in Nashville at a health freedom rally. And I think that that will be a huge significance into our conversation today about freedom of health and freedom of choice and freedom of speech, you know, all things that we believe in over here at Chirohustle. So give us a little bit of background. Give us your story. How did you get to where you are today? I know it's been, I read your bio earlier. You've done a lot of stuff. But talk a little bit more about how you got to where you are today and why it's important to our audience.
I can just tell you very dramatically, I've been a teacher, family of teachers. So I have a huge library, 3rd generation kind of a thing. And I literally had a whole entire section of naturopathic things and, scriptural things, Aramaic and Hebrew. I've studied the scriptures for 40 years every day. And I know them much better than most of the pastors do. And I know what went on and the things that have been denied to us through the centuries. But the fact of the matter is, I was, before I got into this situation with cancer, I was actually the #1 man in America, don't die laughing, Jim, selling cancer policies for my company. And I just pulled this plaque off the wall because it's basically my copy. The home copy of what I was in this very month, September of 2014, I was the sales professional month, the #1 man in America selling cancer policies for my company. And literally I went into the, one of my territories. I went into that and I worked that morning, worked out on a rowing machine that I'd never seen for decades, and I thought this is really cool. And so I did my day, and then I went back to the hotel at the end of the afternoon, and I was just fixing to lie down, and I put my straight arm down on the bed, and something broke in my left-hand side. I'm telling you, it was so painful. I had no idea what happened. I couldn't get up or off or down or move. It was totally horrible. And so basically what had happened, my spleen had exploded. And I didn't know it, but I thought I was doing what you call a sports injury, because it was, the first time I'd used a rowing machine for years. And so I was telling all the people that I know that were naturopathic folks I was already akin to thinking outside the box in terms of, I don't do drugs. My family doesn't do any of that kind of stuff. And we've just been thinking, I was thinking I had a sports injury. So I was telling my compadres everywhere, I think this is a sports injury. I don't know what it is. It never got good. It never got better. And pretty soon I was just being defeated in my food intake because I couldn't eat anything without having a tremendous amount of pain on my left-hand side. My right-hand side had abs and my left hand was like a funhouse mirror. My body went like that. And it was just really bad. And I couldn't eat. And so I lost 50 pounds in 6 weeks. And I was a very, very, very weak man at that point. And my family said to me, you're not going to die on our watch. So they took me into Vanderbilt. And in Vanderbilt there, they diagnosed me as stage 4 cancer. And, stage 4, I guess you know this, of course, but some of your audience might not. Stage 4 is the end zone. So I went into Vanderbilt. They said, you're stage 4 cancer. And my mind was so out of it. I said, no. I sell cancer policies. I don't have cancer. They said, shut up. You have cancer and it's stage 4. And so immediately they launched into this thing. I had to change hospitals to go to another here in Nashville, but same old stuff. And they used this opportunity to put me in there, and they immediately put a port in my chest, and they did a surgical, basically amniocentesis to take all this stuff in this balloon side of. They started me onto their program, and it was chemotherapy and all this stuff that was just terrifying to me. And I'll tell you a little story. I knew I didn't want to do chemo, Jim, but I didn't have any choices because at the time I was just like thinking I was selling policies that were treatment based. So every time I had one of the policies, and every time I was going to the hospital, I was hooked on morphine. Every time I had a chemo treatment, every time I was in the hospital, I literally was paid by my policy. And so what I did was I entered in, and they put this port right in your chest here, and then they started draining the chemo into my chest. And I'm telling you, it's the most toxic thing in the world. I don't believe in the American Medical Association at all. The AMA is what they're called. That's actually the root word for Alternative Medical Association. Now, if you can hear this out, they are the alternative. They're not anything like conventional. But what's happened is the media, we call it media, it's a Pravda propaganda machine for the companies that are big pharma. Pharmakeia is the Greek word for sorcery and witchcraft. So they literally are pumping our bodies full of witchcraft, sorcery stuff through their apprentices. And the guys in the white coats with the stethoscopes, that's the Halloween costumes that they wear. They make you think they're important, and they're not. But the girls and guys in the hazmat outfits, they came and started pumping this SHIT into my chest. And I'm telling you, it was horrifying because they call them side effects. But I'm telling you, Jim, I know the lingo. It's such a lie. They're not side effects. I was a gymnast. I was in beautiful health. And then all of a sudden, I've got all these things that I've never had before until I met those people. Like, for instance, over the next 6 months, year, I developed all these side effects, they call them. I call them collateral damage. I know their lingo. Their lies don't matter. And I know what I now have been through. They gave me, of course, they took all my hair. So this is my rebellion, my open rebellion to the medical society, because they literally took all my hair. And I was a very hairy man. What I have left is nothing compared to what I used to be. But at least I have something. And so it's a different color, a different texture, a different amount and all that. But they literally gave me, they took all my hair. They gave me chemo brain, which you probably understand, fog. You just don't know where you left your keys, or you don't know who you talked to 15 minutes ago. They also destroyed my immune system. Could you imagine? I know I'm talking to a man that knows this, but could you imagine, folks, they destroyed my immune system. The one system I needed to have to overcome terminal cancer was my immune system, and they destroyed it. So I literally was in quarantine for a year. I couldn't leave the house, couldn't go to schools, which is what I was working in, couldn't go to church, couldn't go anywhere. And literally, they also gave me bone loss and gum loss in my teeth, so I had to have dental surgery. And then they gave me pulmonary embolisms. That's blood clots on your lungs. And then they gave me a heart attack. And I had to go to the cardiac unit, and that cost one night was $17,500, Jim. And then I have neuropathy in my feet. I have arthritis in my hip. I mean, everything that you could imagine. I'm not even going to tell you some of it's just too personal. But literally, they destroyed my body. And they were telling me they were making me better. And the girls were coming in and the nurses were putting the stuff into this porch. And there were about 60 people in the room. And they were pouring the stuff in and they're wearing hazmat clothes. There isn't a piece on them that is exposed because they know if they touch it or if they drop it, it's a hazmat situation. And you could call that health care. Oh, no. It isn't health. It isn't care. All they're doing is doing what the pharma tells them to do by using the products. Do you know how much that oncologist made every time he gave me a prescription of chemo? I figured this out, Jim. I started doing my homework on all this evil. Literally, he made $3,500 every single time he prescribed chemo to me into his bank account. And so what happens is they have this cross purposes thing or conflict of interest. And there were about, I figured, I'm an event planner, so literally there are about 60 chairs in the room. Beautiful leather chairs, and everybody was getting all this stuff pumped into their chest, and everyone was turning green and gray and yellow and losing all their hair, and everyone was dying. You know, they're all dying. But the point is this: they literally took all this stuff. They're making $3,500 times 60. Do you know what the math is? The math is $210,000, and that was Monday. Okay. This is wickedness. It's so high on the scale of money making. And I became a business model for them, Jim. And that's where I really parted ways. I was so disgusted because I know what I was doing. When I was a young man, I was a minister of music at a 7,000 member mega church in Dallas. And I got the job to also be the senior minister to the senior people in the congregation. And they loved me. And I had such a good time with them. I was a young man, maybe 24, something like that, 25 years old. And literally there was one lady that had cancer and she had developed cancer. She was now 40 years old or something, but she had developed cancer as an infant. And her mother had laid her under a tree and the sun had just burned a hole in her cheek. That developed over the years. And the Alternative Medical Association, the AMA, literally cut off her cheek over the years. Then they cut off her nose. And then they cut off her eye. And so by the time I met her, she was wearing a prosthetic device that covered her like this and literally looked like the Phantom of the Opera. She had a wig on. She had open running sores on her leg. And she literally, her husband had divorced her. Her daughter disowned her. And she was living in a trailer all by herself. Now, this woman was a beautiful spirit, great attitude. And so she had a man that was coming into her trailer to work with her. And he was traveling the world at the behest of kings and queens because they knew that he knew how to deal with cancer. And so she'd had 39 chemo treatments and she was ready to go home to die. This guy came across her and he was nursing her back to health. And it was so lovely because I got to talk to this guy and he became a personal friend of my family. And I said to him at one point, I said, "This is amazing what you're doing with this lady." He said, "Yes, it is amazing. But just think of the quality of life that she has now after what they've done to her. It's horrifying." And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Let me tell you a little story." And there's a moral to my story here, Jim. He said, there's this situation that happened to me. He said, the director of oncology at MD Anderson, which is a massive cancer hospital, he brought his wife to me. And he said, his name was, well, doesn't matter. I won't tell you. But anyway, he said, "Yeah, I'll talk to your wife." The director of oncology said, "Would you help my wife?" He said, "Sure." Ralph said, "Sure." He said, "I'll do that, but I have a question for you. Since you're the director of the big hospital down there and you have all the tools of MD Anderson at your control, why are you bringing your wife to me?" And the man said something. This is now 35 years ago. He said something that stuck in my head forever. He said, "Because you don't give chemotherapy to people you love." And that was 35 years ago. And now it's my turn. I remembered that you don't give chemotherapy to people you love, but what do you do? So now it's my turn to figure all this out. And like I told you, I was selling cancer policies at a huge rate. And I was very unusually successful at it because I was working in teachers. I'm a teacher, and literally I was talking to teachers every day. And they recognized that I was not only an insurance guy, but I was a teacher who knew about insurance. So I would do a 7-minute drill in the faculty meetings. and they would listen to me, and I would have them fill out a 3x5 card if they wanted to talk to me afterwards. And anywhere, 65 to 95% of the teachers always wanted to talk to me. So I just walk up and down the hallway selling cancer policies, and everybody loved it. And I thought it was doing
You've made it to Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession on the world's #1 chiropractic podcast. This episode is sponsored by Imaging Services, Chiro Health USA, Chiro Moguls, Pure Chiro Notes, Titronics, Sherman College of Chiropractic, New Patients in a Box, the Influencer Authority Podcast Training, Mango Voice, Community Healthcare Resources, Life Chiropractic College West. Let's hustle. So let me ask you, over this time, now you are helping people with the exact same scenario that you were found yourself in.
And that's
so
right.
You were working with cancer. Your body took on cancer. You've now recovered from cancer, and now you're helping people with the end of their lives with your work that you're doing today.
Absolutely. And keeping them from having their lives ended, because I have products and protocols and practitioners that will turn cancer around. I mean, I just tell you something, the tools for curing and healing diseases and cancer are already here. They're just not in the Alternative Medical Association. Those people, by the way, the reason I call them that, they're about 125 years old, and they're nothing. The things that I know are thousands of years old. The herbs, if you look in the scriptures, in Genesis to Revelation, in Genesis 1, it says, let the seeds be your meat. And all of the seeds are 20 to 30 times the power of the fruit of that, the flesh of the fruit or vegetable. 20 to 30 times is in the seeds we've been taught to spit out. But you just think about this. That's one thing, a little clue there. On the other end of Revelation, it says in 22, let the leaves of the trees are for the healing of the nations. Literally, the products are already here. But the Alternative Medical Association will not acknowledge God. They think they are God. And I can tell you it's a graphic situation I came up with. They were terrible to me. But I realized that what they think they know, they don't know, and they won't take it themselves. So this is a bad situation. And I'm dealing with so many people that are dying every day at the hands of the Alternative Medical Association. When I speak at conferences, brother, I have so many people, if they'll come up to me afterwards, and many are just saying, I can't believe this. I can't believe what you're doing. And then once in a while, I get a stray person that says, you're not very nice to the people in oncology. There's lovely people in oncology. To which I say, yes, there are lovely people working at Wendy's. That's not my point. My point is that people that watch 1,600 folks a day die under their watch. That's what the normal number is in America here, is 1,600 folks are dying from cancer every day. And believe it or not, all your audience here, Jim, they don't know this to be the fact that there are already here to reverse cancer, but they've suppressed them, repressed them, and actually given a lot of my colleagues shortness of breath, if you understand what I mean by that. So no, the situation is pretty desperate, and that's why I'm trying to help people and alert them to as many people as I can that the tools are here already. They don't have to dream them up or go looking and worried about all this. It's just ridiculous. The media is bought and sold by pharma. So they're never going to tell you that the cures for AIDS, for HIV, for COVID, for Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, autism, diabetes, arthritis, Lyme, all of these things are already here. And they're just not ever going to tell us because they make so much money on not telling us. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I think that the most important thing is we tell people how you can help them.
Absolutely.
Because I think that instead of being concerned with the people that aren't doing it the right way, I know that you are doing something to make a change.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's talk about how you're doing something to make a change.
And I'm sorry it took so long on that, but the story is very nice for people to hear. I just see that people relate to my testimony because they're going through it right now. If there's 1,000 people in the room, I say, does anybody here have a relative or a friend or somebody that's going through cancer? There isn't a hand that isn't raised. I mean, everybody now. And it's basically because of what we're eating and what they're putting in the food stores. And so I began to read, part of my thing was I had a couple of books on my bookshelf by a nutritional biochemist. And he was in Florida. And one of his book titles just intrigued me that was on my shelf. And it said, "What in the cell is going on?" And that was a little irreverent. So I just thought, I'll look at it, and I started to read it. Well, this guy's a brilliant guy. And he said that all disease has common denominator of inflammation, all of them. And he said the cellular terrain is what to shoot for, which is what you work with also. See, the problem that I see with these people in the Alternative Medical Association is that they'll cut off a woman's breast. They'll cut off a man's prostate. This is barbarism. That the problem is it's not at that spot. Cancer is already throughout the system. In fact, the tools of the Alternative Medical Association they cannot tell that you've had cancer unless you've already had it for 8 to 12 years. So what I do is I help people to realize that the tools that they use for diagnosing, like a mammogram or a PSA test or these PET scans or CAT scans, they're all going to cause cancer or exacerbate your cancer. So you need to be really careful with the diagnostic tools. But what happened was the nutritional biologist in Florida sicked me onto the idea of nutrition. I asked my oncologist, what should I eat? Do you know what the man said to me? He said, it doesn't matter. Nutrition has nothing to do with cancer. Now, of course, I always ask questions of my oncologist people that I already knew the answers to. Like any good attorney, I already knew the answers. So I just asked him to see what they had to say. He said that nutrition has nothing to do with cancer.
So let's talk a little bit about that. What are you doing? What are you doing to keep yourself healthy as a cancer survivor?
Well, first of all, I would just tell you, I do about 16 things. I did about 16 things, just so you know that. Okay. And people call me, I have a list on my wall. They call me and say, what did you, can you read me your list? And I'm not going to do that, because what I'm going to tell you is that it requires wisdom. And if you ask our Heavenly Father for wisdom, you're going to get it. And everybody's journey is a little bit different, Jim, just so you and I already agree on this stuff anyway, but everybody's got a little different journey. One of the things that I discovered that's fantastic is these little things called apricot seeds. Okay. Apricot seeds are put out by Dr. John Richardson's company. Originally, John Richardson there's a book called World Without Cancer by G. Edward Griffin. And that book is very famous. It chronicles Dr. John Richardson's journey with healing terminal and critical and chronically ill cancer people. And literally another book that he wrote, Dr. Richardson wrote Laetrile Case Histories. Well, that book chronicles 65 cases or so of people that were really bad off and they were left to die. One of the things I have very good success with, by the way, using these products is pancreatic cancer. And pancreatic cancer is reversible using these things that are called apricot seeds. And so one of the chief parts of my prophylactic thinking with everyone, prophylactic, as you know, is preventative. Literally, I teach people about what the good thing is in the B17, which is the apricot seed. The apricot seed itself, in the Eastern cultures, like in Armenia and Kurds and so forth, many of those cultures count a man's wealth in terms of how many apricot trees he owns, because apricot trees are extremely important with the seeds. Now, they're bitter, which you get, it's an educated taste, but the bitter seeds, if you have a handful of those seeds every day, you're never going to get cancer. And let me explain why. B17 is the technical term for a tightly bound molecule around 4 parts. 2 parts glucose, remember that, 1 part benzaldehyde, and 1 part cyanide. And what happens is the glucose, cancer loves glucose, so it invites it in with the benzaldehyde, and literally it's poisoned by the cyanide, because cancer is the only cell in your body that doesn't have another enzyme called rhodinase. So literally it's a targeted toxicity to cancer cells. Okay. And why did they destroy Dr. John Richardson's practice? They took his license, destroyed everything, his reputation, and the word Laetrile became a synonym of evil, in the Pravda propaganda machine that we have today called the media. So they destroyed John Richardson, and he was having phenomenal success. And so today his son, John Jr., and I worked together in providing these seeds, apricot seeds, and this amygdalin and all these kinds of products for people that are terminal or critical or chronically ill. And that's one of the things that I did. It still continues today. And I know many people that are reversing their diseases through using that on top of complete diet change. You understand nutrition, obviously. You look the picture of health. And you understand nutrition is vital to turning around things. No matter what the American Medical Association or the alternative says, it's critical. Do you know what they put on every counter in the oncology world? Every time you come or go, do you know what's on the front counter of their registration desk?
Candy?
A bowl of candy, Jim. It's absolutely outrageous. These people are feeding your cancer. And then they give you these tests like a PET scan, a positive emission tomography. The PET scan actually uses radioactive glucose. And so they feed your cancer this phenomenal meal, and then they irradiate you to see what they fed it for lunch. I mean, it's insane. The diagnostic tools are so bad. But anyway, back to nutrition. A couple of things so that literally, I know that the things that I had to do had to eliminate sugar. Okay? Everything was sugar. The only thing that was sweet was stevia, because God created that. So stevia works wonders. There's another thing that they need to eliminate, and that's the inflammation caused by dairy. The American Dairy Association, milk does a body good. Only, mammal that drinks another mammal's milk. And all those products are massive inflammation causes, which is the root cause of cancer. So I left off all the dairy. And I would ask your people to think about this. They call me anytime they want to, but leaving off the cheeses and the creams and the butter and the milk. But there's alternatives to all of these. Again, brother, it's just an educated taste. You have to educate yourself because it's a little different taste. But over time, like my daughter said to me the other day, she said, I would never drink another glass of dairy milk ever. This is like 5 years later. We've been doing almond milk. Okay. And there's all kinds of versions. Just make sure you get the stuff that doesn't have sugar put into it. No sweeteners put into it. Okay. But when you start looking at packaged products in the middle of the store, oh my gosh, Jim, it's horrible. They put high fructose corn syrup in everything. It's sugar, So
let me ask you this.
Yep.
If there's one person you could sit and talk with for an hour, who would you choose?
Oh, I love that question. Well, of course, Yahushua is the real name. You guys call him Jesus, probably. But that, maybe a half hour with him, maybe a half hour with Dr. John Richardson. He's passed away because they actually did him away.
And if people wanted to work with you,
yes,
how do they connect with you? And I know because, like you said, if you go and talk to a room of 1,000 people, they're all going to have their hands up if they know somebody that's struggling with, cancer related lifestyle. Yep.
Well, I can tell you, first of all, my website is marcusellis.org, and that's marcusellis.org. But the thing I want to tell you is that I also provide financial resources, Jim, to terminal, critical, and chronically ill people, because healthcare insurance is in what I call the pink ribbon propaganda mirage up to their eyeballs. They will not take care of you if you want to go naturopathically. So any red-blooded American man that looks at a website that says naturopathic or functional or alternative, they've got it all upside down. But if they say that, they will not pay for anything. That's what happened to me. It was $400,000 they stole from me at the Alternative Medical Association. And then I was terminal. And when I went naturopathically, it was $25,000. But Jim, I want you to know this. My own company denied all benefits to me when I left the system. And I was their ace salesman. So I had to learn the hard way. And you can imagine, with integrity meaning something to me, I literally had to leave my own company. I couldn't sell one more policy to one more teacher because I knew I was shoving him into the arms of the Alternative Medical Association that has no idea how to cure or heal. In fact, those two words, Jim, are 4-letter swear words: cure and heal. And that's what I wanted. I didn't want their words. Their words are treatments. Their words are remission. A man called me today, or talked to me today at the grocery store. He said, "Oh, so I guess you're in remission." I said, "Oh, no, not at all. I don't do that. Remission came from the Bible. That's a biblical term. And now they've hijacked it, which is what they're good at, and turned it into the reality is it's coming back, because they never get to the root cause. So remission is just a fancy word for, time will tell. And in fact, they do that to PSA tests. Sometimes they do this to men. They say, oh, we're going to do watchful waiting. Could you imagine having cancer? They're going to watchful wait you? Do nothing?
So it sounds like you're the miracle story here, but maybe share with us a story that you've learned about or helped with.
Sure.
with your systems that you've helped people find solutions to their cancer.
Absolutely. I had a very interesting case down in Southern California of a lady that had cancer. Her husband had a policy, an insurance policy. And this is what I do with viatical settlements. I literally buy people's life insurance policies that are terminal, critical, and chronically ill. And I give them the funds tax-free to go naturopathically or whatever they want to do. Frankly, it just doesn't matter. But it's tax exempt. So they have no problem. So I had this couple down there in Southern California, had 4 children, and the wife has breast cancer. I can tell you honestly, brother, anybody that has 4 children at home or 1 child at home, it's not their time to die. They shouldn't be dying, especially when the cures are already here. But I got to knowing these people, and through the viatical settlements, I ended up giving them, the husband had a policy. We know I have ranks of investors behind me that actually buy policies and invest in them. And they literally invested in this couple. There was something called a spousal rider, and we discovered that. And literally we gave the family $450,000 on a non-existent policy. And literally then they had the ability to move their family and to have another one of my colleagues come down there and live with them in Southern California. Some of these guys that I work with actually travel the country and go help people. And he lived at their home for 4 months and rebuilt her body with her. So she's alive today. Now they're living in Texas, 4 children, and everything is just moving right along in a completely different direction.
Really amazing story. We're at the edge of our time together today. I just want to thank you, Marcus Ellis, for being episode 424 of the Chiro Hustle podcast. I know that there's a lot of people out there that are going to listen to this show, and they're going to need some resources for their loved ones. So go to marcusellis.org and reach out and see if there's any solutions that he might be able to offer to you and your loved ones. Thank you for being my guest today.
Well, thank you, Jim, for having me on. It's been a pleasure.
I look forward to seeing you and talking to you very soon. And I want you to have an amazing day out there in beautiful Tennessee.
Thank you, Jim. You too.
All right. Talk to you soon.
Yes, sir. Bye for now.
Bye for now. Thanks for listening to Chiro Hustle. Don't forget to subscribe and check back next week to continue hustling.